Hi everyone. It looks like I'm live again here on Coffee with Craig. I'm Craig Hamilton Parker. I'm your psychic medium. And today I'm going to talk about Hollywood. I'm going to talk about the future of Hollywood, the future of the creative industries and the film industries, and give you my intuitive insights into where I think it's all going, and to take some of your questions as we discuss the future of the media, the future of Hollywood. Well, hi everyone, and this is a live show, so people are coming into the live stream now from YouTube as I talk, and I'll be taking some of your questions as well as we move forward on Hollywood, the media, and the future of the media, and what I see and what do you see, and let's also discuss this in the comments afterwards too, because I think this is quite an important topic in many ways. Um, because the future of the world, I've talked about a lot. You've seen it in my predictions. You've seen I've put up a lot of 2024 predictions this year. I'm going to be doing an awful lot more of those as we discuss each topic. But I wanted to sort of focus today on what's happening in the media. Because you think about it, the media, what we watch, is very much a reflection of who we are as people. When you look, for example, when I went to Rome a few years ago and went round the Coliseum, it seems almost unbelievable to us now that people could have been put in that place and slaughtered for entertainment. And yet, in Roman times, it was a way of keeping law and order. It was a way of showing your enemies who's boss, and it was where people gathered and had fun, I suppose, in their perverted sort of way. And how far are we away, really, from that type of mentality today? Nowadays, our entertainment has often become entertainment of gaming, and that will often involve all sorts of mass murder and shooting people, and very, very realistic situations in which you're in the sort of the first person position, killing people. And this is kind of today's Colosseum in many ways. What's the difference between a mindset of somebody that can sit and play a computer game in which people are killed for fun, and the actual Colosseum of Rome, where people were murdered for fun again? So we've got very grey lines nowadays being drawn between what is suitable entertainment and what is pure malice and creating and developing in all of us a very negativity towards humanity. I mean, I watch a TV. I love to see war films sometimes. And if you were to count the number of people shot and murdered in the period you've watched for an hour of that type of movie, you could count them in the thousands, just in an hour's viewing. So we're being bombarded all the time by so much negativity. But that aside, that's a question of censors, I suppose, and a question of what is morally right to put on the media. But because we're naturally, I think, instinctively inclined to see things like that, and I wouldn't like to see a world that's all very PC, where we only see, romances and you videos and the rest of it. So it's a question, I think, of what is the media doing? Where will it go, and where are we? Because I actually think right at now, we're in very much a sort of dark age for media. We've got more of it than ever. It's all over. Like, this is media, this is YouTube, this is uncensored, um we got videos on Twitter, X. We've got platforms like Netflix and Prime, and so much to choose from. And yet, if you want to find anything good that's new, you really have to scratch around. For example, I don't know how you guys feel, but things like Netflix, to me, it reminds me of the writing machines from 1984. George Orwell, who was a genius, foresaw a world in which the proles, as he called them, 85% of humanity would be quite satisfied having their arts generated by writing machines. And that's basically what we got now. We've got AI coming in that is just or will certainly more so in the future, already starting, but start generating new plots based upon previous things. I tried it with George Orwell. I asked AI, help me to rewrite a sequel to 1984, and it came up with some quite good ideas, but none of the genius of George Orwell, of course, just sort of rehashing of the Orwellian idea and where it could go from there. And it came up with some interesting thoughts, if you can call them thoughts. But this is how all of it goes now. You see that what it generated, artificial intelligence, was completely devoid of inspiration. It was full of ideas, full of well-written sentences, but it didn't have any real moral message behind it. There was no genius there, right? And so we have writing machines today. This is what's happening. Every time I watch a Netflix program, for example, to me, it's just a rehash of something that's been done before. And if you think about our music too, when we listen to Spotify or Apple Music or all of it, it's always going retro. It's always going back to previous artists. I sit and listen to stuff that I listened to in the 70s, and I think, well, isn't there something kind of really new out there that can grab me? And yes, there's new music out there, but it seems to lack any real soul. And this is why I think we're living in a dark age in many respects, creatively. We're living in a dark age because the music is just rehashes of what's been before. It's playing the same old stuff, and everybody mimics what came before. Everybody wants to be, the next John Lennon. Liam Gallagher wanted to be the next John Lennon. So they just kind of copy their style, copy their personality. So we had a kind of, particularly in all the arts, but particularly in music, in the 70s and 60s, 70s, and almost into the 80s, we had a revolution of musical thoughts, musical ideas in all aspects of music, not just the sort of popular music, but in jazz, in folk music, in just about anything you can name. There was an artistic revolution after a very dark period of the Second World War. But now we're kind of in a very dark retro mode. Everything, like, for example, we have programs like Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent or those X Factor and those sort of programs, which just have sort of puppet-like singers getting up and singing someone else's songs. There's nothing on there that makes you think, wow, what a creative idea that was. How marvelous. Even the Beatles is looking back with the modern revamps of some of John Lennon's songs, his unpublished songs, which are quite pretty good, but it's not new, is it? It's still something from the past. Is that going to make a generation stand up and say, we want a better world? It's not, is it? It's just looking backwards. So my feelings are that the way things are going is kind of into a dark period. There's no soul in what we watch. There's no soul in what we listen to. There's no soul in the music. And what's happened? This I think is a dangerous reflection of the world today. Everything has been dumbed down and then dumbed down again and dumbed down to the point that it's almost for I think a thoughtful person, it's almost unwatchable. Where are we going with this? What do you think? Put a comment. What do you think? Are we just falling down into a black hole of lack of creativity? Because everything that's been done seems to have been done. There's no shock of the new anymore. You can you can go to a museum, for example, and look at art, and all the shocking stuff was done back in the Dada art, wasn't it? I remember going to the Tate Gallery, and as you go in, it's got a black and white film of some guy dancing around nude in black and white, and that was something from 1914 or something. I think it was part of the Dada movement. Piece of film to shock everybody. You should go in the museum, and even Duchamp's urinal still shocks people to this day. So it was all done, and now the modern day art, it's just trying to do the same thing, and it's served its purpose. You've done the shock. What is art? We've asked that question. Now what? So it seems like it's just mimicking. Even in the arts, it's a revamps of what was before. Duchamp did it. I can do it again. Well, you do really need to do it in 2023. And the same thing when we look back on the music, like I said, and even the films. The films today, why do we always have to have remakes of Mission Impossible and all the other stuff? Just the same stuff over and over again. That was out in what, 70s Mission Impossible, and you just revamp it, and it's the same story retold with different sets. And that's just one example of all of them. And even Indiana Jones, there was a fabulous breakthrough, wasn't it? And what a film, what a movie, what a breakthrough, what a great movie that was. And now it kind of flops finally, when we just use CGI to map faces onto other actors, or to make it look as if you're young again, and things like that. And we end up again, I think, with a very poor creativity, because it's just, it did it once, do it again. I always think with Hollywood, it's like what they seem to do is, let's make a cake, right? Sugar's good. Okay, put some sugar in. Eggs are good. Put some eggs in. Flour's good. Put some eggs in. Actually, sugar's good. Let's put some more sugar in. Let's put some more eggs in. More sugar. Let's just do the same thing again with more of that and more of that and more of that. As if, okay, now the recipe is completely spoiled. All you've got is sugar and eggs. And it's the same thing that seems to happen. If it works once, let's do it again and do it again and do it again, because we're in here to make the money. And unfortunately, what happens is we just end up with a load of drivel, don't we? So where's it going to go in the future? Because the other thing we've also got used to the idea of fakeness. We know that there's fake in when we look at artificial intelligence. We now look at the news, and very, very few people nowadays trust the traditional news channels. It would have been unheard of years ago, but I watch things like the BBC, and I look at it and I think, this is all skewered to your viewpoint, your far liberal viewpoint. It doesn't reflect anything about the society. It pretends to, but it's reflecting certain small number of people's ideas. It doesn't reflect the tensions in society, the divisions in society. And the news, when presented, we're often asking questions afterwards, of saying, is that really right? Then years down the line, or months down the line, we start to hear other news sources picking it apart and saying, hey, that's not right. And this is the same in America with CNN and all of the news outlets. We don't know where we are with it, do we? So we have to look to multiple sources nowadays to find the truth. So one of the things I think is going to happen is BBC in particular, I feel, is going to be stripped right down. I don't know if the Labour get in, which I like I said, I get a feeling they might not yet, because I get the feeling there's going to be major changes in the Tory party. But here in the UK, if Labour get in, I don't think they touch the BBC too much. But I think if we get another Tory government in, my feeling is that the BBC will be picked apart. And I feel if it doesn't happen now, it will happen down the line. The BBC will go. It will have to go. What is the point of regional programs? Huge amounts of money spent on telling us about a new park bench down the road from me, or some post box has been vandalized. They've got no use to talk about. Pointless. And does things like Scottish television and Welsh television, does that really help the unity of a country if the BBC is there as the mouthpiece of the country, as it were? I don't think so. It's kind of, again, too many hidden agendas, and yet they got a vast amount of brilliant stuff from the past. So I see BBC in probably the next 5 years being stripped right down to the basics, a basic news broadcasting outlet, because they won't be able to get rid of that, even though it's 99% rubbish, in my opinion. But an online archive of everything that was good about the BBC from the past, with Only Fools and Horses and all those things that you might have enjoyed, and Vicar of Dibley and fun stuff, all that I think is eternal. That will last for a long, long time. But Channel 4, BBC 4, BBC 3, and all the radio stations. Why do we need that? Why do we need that? Because it's everywhere. We got it. We got everywhere. We got that, and these things have had a sort of a cozy little culture where people get away with anything they love. It produces great stars like Jimmy Savile and Gary Glitter and Rolf Harris. But so they've all had their little world, and that's just the one level of some of the nastiest corruption we've seen. But behind it all, there's masses of corruption. People are able to sit back on huge salaries and do nothing, all at the taxpayer's expense. Of course, some good stuff comes out of it, David Attenborough and things, you might argue. But do we really need the BBC to do that? There's brilliant ones on Netflix, for example, at the moment, even though Netflix, as I said, I don't like. But it's revamps. But I don't think the BBC has got a creative edge anymore. This lost its creativity. So why should we keep it? They said they can't do another Monty Python's on the BBC. There's too many things that would be in the way for a Monty Python's. First of all, it's all white people, it's all white males, it's all Oxford type people. You can't have something like that now. It's got to be a mix of this and that. And they tell you what the formula is, and of course it can't work. You couldn't get that. You couldn't get the goons either, or anything like that. And all these things, even silliness, for example, is frowned upon because there could be something not PC there. Comedian can't even tell a joke without getting into trouble. I've actually been looking at some of the stuff by the most hated of comedians, Bernard Manning, and actually some of his stuff's quite funny sometimes. Some of it is horrible and shocking and dreadful, and is definitely shouldn't be on screens. But it's almost like it wants you to do something un-PC when you get so much PC stuff thrown at you. It's gross. And I think that's one extreme, and the other is just as bad. And you don't want anything hateful, and yet you don't want anything that stops people expressing themselves, that stops people being creative. Otherwise, everything becomes grey like a committee, doesn't it? So the future of the BBC, I see going. I see the BBC becoming something that's a downloadable old channels. I see coming back to just maybe 2 channels of BBC One and BBC Two, and maybe that even fading out as the older people, who the only ones that seem to watch it now, gradually die off. So once I'm dead, I think BBC will probably be gone, because what's the point of having terrestrial channels really if everything can be called downloaded? And also, what's the point of Hollywood too? I mean, we don't have anymore the need for a huge sets like, do you remember D.W. Griffith that made the incredible sets? He'd build Babylon out of plywood, and build Rome and things like that. Early Hollywood had to build it all. It had to make everything. So we needed a center for it all to be focused around. But we don't need sets to that extent nowadays. It can all be done in an airplane hangar in enough space with enough green paint around it. You can pretty much make anything with CGI, and you can have armies of hoarding armies charging across the screen. None of it's real. It's all just artificial reproduction of things, just as you would make a video game. So why have Hollywood? Why do you have to have all those actors in that same place? You see, Hollywood grew, didn't it, as the British film industry fell apart with the Second World War. Well, Europe, and not just British, but the Swedish film industry, the French film industry, the Italian film industry, all which were thriving before the Second World War, all fell into disarray. And meanwhile, Hollywood started to grow and started to push forward American values. And in many ways, wasn't it Hollywood that pushed America into the mainstream? Everybody wanted the clothes that we saw on Gone with the Wind and all the rest of it. They wanted the Hollywood's lifestyle. It became an image that everybody could buy into. The media was the message. We wanted this. But America's in decline now, because you can see it's in decline because Hollywood has fallen to pieces. It reflects the American society. It's full of self-doubt. It's got no it's not driven anymore. It's not confident. It's kind of weak, and it's babyish almost. When you watch the various awards being given, the Oscars and things like that, almost babyish sort of people who you look at. Are these our heroes? Are these people we want to follow? Are these people we want to mimic? Are these people we want to buy into that lifestyle? They're weak. And I think that's how I see it anyway. And I'm sure, do you, put a comment, what do you think? Has Hollywood fallen into this? And why do we need it? So my thoughts are that Hollywood's going to fall to bits. Bollywood grew up in India, but that was still using big sets because that's how it did it. It was kind of the second, it was a mimic of Hollywood, but even that won't be needed, I don't think. I think it'll be slimmed right down in the coming 5 years or so, Hollywood. The arts will go where the money is. So we might see film studios developing in unusual places, like, for example, Dubai. That could become an area all undercover in which film industry could develop, particularly with AI as that develops, and questionable questions over do we really need actors even? I lost my camera for a second there. Do we need actors even? So I see it all kind of becoming a much more spread out. I see Hollywood failing, smaller places regenerating. In the UK, there's been a rebirth of a certain amount of film industry in London and so forth, but it hasn't become the scale of Hollywood or anything like the scale it used to be after the Second World War and to now. It's all fallen down, and of course, then we got Weinstein and people like that, haven't we? Like, that's an interesting point someone's putting out. I went to Hollywood big time after Harvey Weinstein. A lot of people knew that he was all about, and he's only one of many, isn't he? He's only one of many that are out there creating a dreadful. These are the people pushing the moral agenda of our world, because Hollywood and the media industry generally is determining a lot to do with what people think. I think most people would probably agree with that, Bella. Ridiculous amount of money for people who play let's pretend, right? Jane and I were watching some bands, and it's all tribute bands now, isn't it? And I said to one of my friends it was a bassist and used to play a lot, and I remember him from school, and he's playing in a tribute band. And I said to him, why can't you just play your own stuff? Your own plus was brilliant before. No, it's all tribute now. We've gone off around Europe and done tribute band for another band. I think they're playing Creedence Clearwater or something, and the crowd love it. And people you ask say, well, this is the closest we get to seeing that sort of thing. But you don't want the old stuff. You want some new stuff. Yeah, Hollywood is on its way out, isn't it? Well, see, that's the sort of thing, Jason, isn't it? Interesting you managed to get on here to catch me. It's smaller. Break it down. It could work just as well in a place like Texas. It could work just as well in Africa, because why not have a studio there? You could have, if you want some sets, you've got it there. You've got your landscapes. But like I say, most of it can be done by CGI now. Why do we need it? So my thoughts are Hollywood's going to go down. My worry is the dumbing down of everything is that will we see any good actors appearing? I was watching an old interview with Laurence Olivier, and he was being interviewed. It might have been the BBC or something like that, and he was quoting Shakespeare, you know, and he'd quote a sonnet of Shakespeare, which was beautifully said and things. And I looked at it and I thought, we don't see that sort of thing anymore. We wouldn't talk like that. There's not time to actually quote a sonnet of Shakespeare. When I've been on television many times, but many times when I've had interviews on television, they won't let you say more than a couple of sentences without interrupting you, because they know that the viewer's attention time is very short. So you basically break in, interrupt to keep the movement going. And so anybody that speaks on television doesn't actually have time to actually present anything of any real depth. It may be more so on radio and more so on YouTube, but television in the past was something that would kind of be there to educate, to stimulate the mind, to try to bring people to more lofty ideas. And now it's all about trying to find the worst possible thing we can possibly put on TV. What is the most shocking thing we can show people? And there's absolutely zero intellectual content, and I worry too that the people that are watching it, the youth, the young kids that are watching this and getting all their stuff off TikTok in 30-second flicks and things like this and all the rest of it, their minds are just becoming like fish. They've got no retention time. They've got no creativity. It's like everything in the world, all the creativity in the world is done for you. All the imagining's done for you. You don't have to bother. You don't have to imagine anything. I mean, my grandson, I was playing with some boxes with him the other day, and we made a garage out of boxes and things like this. And then we got on to make other things and boats and all the rest of it. And his imagination was in it. He loved it, And I thought he's loving that because it's not been done for him. He's having to use his imagination to create something. And in his mind, he was coming up with other ideas and other ideas, learning to play, the power of play. But we don't have any of that. It's all done for us. All youth now, or childhood rather, is just sat on a screen with it all done for you. You're just absorbing. You're just an observer. You're not participating. I see in the future, though, much more awakening of live arts. Yes, you get things like Glastonbury and things like that, and things like that. But again, that's retrospective. It's not new. It's old in many. It's old school stuff. It's the new age warmed up. But what I see in the future is much more interest in live things, live concerts and live theatre. I think there's going to be a swing against this passive watching of screens. I sense that people are going to want to get proper community. Because the community we get here on YouTube, the community we get on Facebook is a lie. It's not. They call it community. They call it social. It's not. It's unsocial. It's the complete opposite of social. It's an illusion that you've got friends. It's an illusion that you can be connected with people, So I think people are going to hanker for more live stuff, and I see that we will get a new renaissance, I feel. We will get, it's time for it. Everything is in a very, like I said, we're in the dark age of media now. When we got more of it, and it's all trash. It's all processed crap. But I feel that there's going to be resistance against this. And I think it's going to take about 5 years. And I think it's going to take a lot of dark times to do it. Because when you listen to songs, I was listening to songs from some of the American Civil War songs just for curiosity. And they were really quite stirring, cheerful songs because they were people singing in the worst of circumstances. Similarly, the songs that came out of the First World War were songs of trying to cheerfulness in a time of despair. And I think the difficult times we've got now, because we've got some pretty tough times ahead, I feel. I think economically and in many ways, they might stimulate the arts again. It's almost you need a bit of pain for the arts to flourish. The arts don't flourish when with somebody that's got a silver spoon in their mouth and got everything. They're not creative. The creative people are usually those that have suffered a bit and genuinely suffered, not thinking they suffered all the time, but really suffered badly. And I hope that this is the way it will go, that we're going to see a new renaissance. I think we've got ahead of us another 3 years, I reckon, of difficult times. And it might be in those 3 years of difficult times that we start to get a little bit of a a reawakening. I've spoken a lot about the idea of a golden age coming up in ahead, that there's going to be an awakening. And for me, creativity and healing and spirituality are all kind of interlinked. Music can heal, good art can heal, creativity can bring you higher, it lifts your spirit, it takes you towards higher, more lofty ideals, and ultimately to the higher states, doesn't it? And I think that's, if I'm right, which I do believe there's a good age coming ahead through all these dark times, it's going to, the first signs we'll see of it is creativity. And I think for that to happen, I think we need things like Hollywood to fall away, because it's become so self-indulged and so up its own something or other. It's lost it completely. And with that case, we need a new creativity, and it has to come from somewhere. It usually comes from the darkest of places. The great revolution that came with the Beatles and the rest of it came out of the dark times of the Second World War. It was a reaction against that. So if we get another rebirth, it has to come out of dark times. So spirituality is what I think connects to it. This is art. What is art all about? Sometimes it's all about reflecting society, they say, but most of it is reflecting what we see nowadays, is reflecting people's self-indulgence, if you ask me. Most art that's out there, to me, is self-indulgence. What I think art should really be trying to aspire to is to question our place, not just in society, but in the universe itself. Art has no spirituality. And when I say art, I'm implying all the creative things. There's no real spirituality to it. It should be driving us towards wanting to know what the universe is all about. Look at the fantastic things that were built in the Renaissance. A lot of that was like questioning man's place in the universe. The Christians message was put in the Renaissance. So it was all about a bit of propaganda with it too. But the artists themselves were pushing towards questioning our place in the world, and these are they need to, like you say, they need to elevate us. And what we get today is we get narcissism and degeneration of the arts. What you said, I have dark time, I start a veg garden. Well, that's true. Nature too. And again, art, I think, should reflect nature. One of the things that I think what we hanker for in music and in visual arts and all of it is often the sort of harmony that we see in nature, the mathematical background, the fractal world. We're looking to find that in ourselves too. We're looking for, just like for example, in the golden mean and things like this, we see the beauty of harmony of mathematics there unconsciously, without even realizing why that looks so beautiful, because it's in perfect harmony with a natural balance. And I think we lack that too. What we see in art today, is any decent art, still is chaos, and we still is kind of the worst of human nature is always reflected there, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know how you feel about this, guys. Let's see if let's have a look at some of your comments again. Holly weird. Yeah, yeah. It is a weird place, isn't it? Oh, right. That just happened, does it? Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I'm not going to do predictions in this one, but I'm going to do some on some other ones. But that's interesting to see that. I didn't realize that had happened. And I make these videos about predicting the future. It's sometimes they happen weeks later. So talking about 2024, and then suddenly it's on the news, and it's strange. Well, my thoughts are what's to come is, like I said, I see art moving towards spirituality. Ultimately, I see a bit of a rebirth and a rethink. I think people feel very depressed by the type of entertainment, the passivity of entertainment they're getting now. In the future, I see much more engaged arts. Like when you play music, people want to dance. I don't generally, but Jane does. People love to dance. It's joining in. I get the feeling we're going to see a coming together of the arts like dance and music and visual arts, a bit like what happened. There was a kind of a bit of a boost of it with all the ecstasy sort of music. Everybody was engaged. But it was kind of artificially driven, wasn't it? But I think we will see art and music, particularly. Music is the most powerful of the arts, I feel. It's the one that really stirs the emotions and stirs the memories, particularly. And that's where a new drive needs to be pushed forward. In the vision, in media, in the film industry, we need something that inspires. We don't want to teach, we want to inspire. That's what the important thing. I think with documentaries too, we've lost so much in the documentary world. I mean, how often do you watch a thought-provoking, well-made documentary on mainstream television? Not much. Things like Big Brother and things pass off as documentary. Fly on the wall stuff parts off as social experiment. Um, you know, uh, you know, overweight people losing weight and having liposuction is a social experiment. That's our documentary rubbish that we get nowadays. We need stuff that's thought provoking. We need what are we looking for when we're looking at the arts? We're looking for inspiration. We're looking for inspired people giving us inspiration. We want, even if it's a documentary, it's still inspiration. It's still to get us thinking. We can't come away and get all the answers. We want to inspire people. Music should inspire. Theatre should inspire. Television should inspire. Film should inspire. All of it is just about inspiration. And I think the key of it all is that we've lost our inspiration. We've lost people that can inspire us. We've lost people that can get rub us up the wrong way and make us feel different about the world, or make us think what a wonderful world, or make us think what a terrible world. What can we do about it? Messages. There's no message in the media now, is it? The messages have been lost. Anyway, I think I'm probably there, but let's see if there's any other things. Yeah, that's an interesting one as well, actually. People do, don't they? It seems you can get away with anything. It's like hidden agendas again. What you got there then? Social media has a dark cloud on it. We need to bring light and change in that society. I agree, Craig. Inspiration's important. Yeah, it's true. It's a dark cloud. And I think it does much more harm than we ever believe. You think, what would the world be like if the media was to completely change things around? What if it was promoting and pushing to us high ideals, love all, serve all, those type of messages? What if it pushed, even be here now, what if it pushed those sort of messages? You don't need material things so much, instead of advertising. What if it teaches things like acceptance? What if it teaches things like inner purity? What if it taught us things like meditation? What if it taught us things like all the values that you could throw out here? So many. But it don't teach any of those things. It teaches materialism. It teaches darkness. It teaches that you're lacking in your life. You're not happy. You've got to buy this. That's an interesting what you say. I recently watched Super Deluxe with subtitles. It made me think about God, karma, and connections. Do you ever watch and share your thoughts? It was Tamil language film. The subtitle. A lot of good stuff comes out of India, and I think India is going to be quite important actually for the future of creativity, because there's a lot of ideas that I think people are hankering to know about. They're being fed material rubbish. We're being fed processed creativity, and there's a great deal I think in India that could offer us, and the East as well generally. I mean, I quite loved all that stuff that's coming out of China, it's not actual communist China, but some of the dance and things that's coming out there. What's this one say? Craig, the difference is that before we were not aware of the wrongdoing, now we are. Yeah, I suppose so. That's part of it too. What's this one saying? I'm sure you predicted the death of a man in Hollywood. Can't remember which video could have been. It could have been. Yes, I did say about that the other day, a little while back. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Right. I think I'm probably coming to the end now, unless there's any last questions you've got, or any last thoughts, any last interesting thoughts. Is anything you want to say? Just pop it up now, and I'll pop it up on the screen. There's been quite a few discussions between you in the lives. You can just make comments if you like. It teaches materialism because someone is making money from it. That's what drives things. True. I'd like to personally thank the arts for being so bad. It helped me break away from the brainwashing on the screen. Well, that's true as well. You know, it teaches you to not watch TV. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to finish now, guys. So thank you all for joining me today. I've got I'm doing some workshops actually just coming up. If you want to join me on a workshop, I'm going to be doing something slightly different to my normal workshops in many respects, because I'm going to do a bit like Coffee with Craig. You know, where we first we'll have a meditation, then you can ask me questions as I tune in. Ask me for predictions and things even, and see if we can connect with the spirit world and what I can give you in messages for that. So have a look on my website, psychics.co.uk. You can see it at the top of the screen there. And the door's still open that for a few more days before I actually have to close it. So yeah, join me from the workshops if you like. Nice to see you all, and I do thank you all for supporting and following this channel like you do, guys, you know, because there's a lot of you look out for me, and yeah, that's true. And maybe there's a space for me there, Aaron. I can sing. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for all your help today. Thanks for joining me. I'm gonna have to go back and say my goodbyes now. So there we go. I'll never find my exit video. Oh, sorry about this, guy. Here we go. See you soon then. All right. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, the Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism. And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. And funnily enough, actually, another royal prediction came true only yesterday, which surprised me really, because it was such a weird prediction I'd made. I predicted in my earlier videos from 2021 for 2022 that the king, I said Prince Charles at the time, because he wasn't actually king at that time, but I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today.